It's time to talk about some NFL trade rumors, specifically on the Miami Dolphins. And all the rumors we're talking about today originated from ESPN and their lead insider, Adam Schefter. I'm Nic Rohloff. This is Dolphins Today by Chat Sports. But Schefter believes there is going to be a lot of trades made between now and the November 4th NFL trade deadline. We've already seen a handful of trades, including Greg Newsome, Odafe Oweh, and Joe Flacco. Well, Schefter mentions it's a copycat leagues where teams are constantly trying to improve. And in an article he wrote, he said he expects another dozen potential trades to come, according to some sources, between now and that trade deadline. And you would have to imagine that the Miami Dolphins will be involved with maybe multiple trades here. Last season, they did not make a trade at the deadline. We wondered if they were going to trade away a player like Calais Campbell. They ultimately did not. They stayed put. But this season, clearly not going anywhere. 1-5, more losses to come before the deadline. 3 more games remain against the Browns, Falcons, and Ravens. With veterans that aren't long for this roster in the future, it would make sense for Miami to sell some of them off and recoup some potential late day 2, early day 3 draft capital for the future. So expect trades to come, and we'll talk about which players could ultimately be traded coming up here in just 1 second. I alluded to it. The Dolphins, without a doubt, will make at least one trade between now and the trade deadline. Well, when that happens, we will have you covered. Do not miss out. Subscribe and make sure your notifications are turned on to all, not just personalized. So when we break the news of a Dolphins trade, you do not miss it. So, Adam Schefter labeled 3 players that are currently on the Dolphins roster as potential trade candidates. The most notable name, and I think the most obvious name, will be and is Jaylen Phillips. I also will be here telling you he is going to be the hottest commodity on this Dolphins roster. As long as Chris Grier is still employed, when his phone rings leading up to that deadline and another team is calling asking about a player, more times than not, it will be Jaylen Phillips because he is on his 5th-year option. He has no long-term deal with the Dolphins secured, which means he's a free agent this upcoming offseason, which makes him attractive as a potential trade for and extend candidate, but also because you are not committed to him long-term. So if a team trades for him and it's a disaster, they are not stuck with him. This is a former first-round pick, still relatively young, returning from a major injury in back-to-back seasons where it's been an ACL and an Achilles. Well, this season, he has actually been the best Dolphins pass rusher without a second of hesitation. And he's actually been graded out relatively high by Pro Football Focus. I mean, as an overall edge this year, he ranks 42 out of 80 quality edges. But when you just boil it down to rushing the passer, he has been graded out very, very high. An 80.1 grade, 15 out of 72. He's got 20 pressures. He has a 19% pass rush win rate, which ranks 14th out of 72 edges, and a 7.1 stop percentage, which ranks 20 out of 57. So he is in the top third, top half edge rusher this year for the Dolphins, and he's clearly been the best one that the Dolphins have had. This is unfortunate that he's not able to tackle. If he was, the Dolphins would have won this past Sunday against the Los Angeles Chargers. But when we talk a lot about these potential trades, a lot of it will be boiled down to the financial impact of a trade. Well, the trade for Miami becomes pretty simple if they trade Phillips, and it's all because he doesn't have a contract beyond this year. So you really have to only worry about this season. Miami only takes in a dead cap hit of $4.4 million if they trade him before the deadline. And as of this week, per se a trade happens this week, a team taking on Jaylen Phillips would have a cap hit of $8.8 million for the rest of the season. And obviously, since there is no future money on the table, there is a $0 dead cap hit for Miami in the future, which means he is likely the top player on Miami that they are fine trading. One, because he probably has a high value compared to everyone else, but also because it really doesn't impact them financially whatsoever. And with pass rushers coming at a premium and the NFL valuing pass rushers at such a high rate, we know this. Elite pass rushers get paid almost as much as quarterbacks. We see Micah Parsons, Myles Garrett get $40 million per season. It is arguably the second most valuable position in the NFL, quarterbacks and edge rushers right now. So with him being cheap to acquire, young, I expect a ton of interest from opposing NFL teams on Jaelan Phillips between now and the deadline. And there are 5 teams that immediately catch my eye. The San Francisco 49ers are without a question my number one. They are 4-2. They are in the midst of a wide open NFC race. They had Nick Bosa tear his ACL and go out for the year. You would have wondered if they traded for Trey Hendrickson. He's dealing with a back injury, so they could very well easily pivot to Jaelan Phillips and get a deal done with Miami, where we know there's a relatively decent relationship between the two head coaches, Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan. I would also expect the Cowboys, Eagles, Colts, and Commanders to potentially be aggressive in terms of looking for an edge rusher. Cowboys desperately need help defensively. Eagles need help on that D-line. The Colts could add and bolster that defense, and the Commanders need more pass rushing help as well. If you're Chris Grier, if you're Miami, I think you can try to squeeze a third-round pick out of this. Now, it depends on who comes calling, because obviously every team has different draft capital at their disposal to use in a potential trade, but I imagine there will be multiple teams interested in Jaelan Phillips. You can try to drive up his trade price point by maybe creating a very small bidding war. That's very possible. We've contemplated and projected a potential conditional 4th-round pick. How about just a solid third? I would be very excited about trading Phillips for a third, getting a late day 2 pick, and if that is on the table, Miami shouldn't hesitate to get that trade done. Couple more names to get to here, but we are sponsored by Mando. Welcome Mando back to the channel. Fall's here, the crisp air, football, maybe a bonfire or two. And if you're like most guys, you're still putting in hard work. And yeah, that means sweat. Don't let body odor sideline you. Mando deodorant plus sweat control is for real working guys. Clinical strength sweat control. 1 swipe and you're good to go. It controls both sweat and odor for 72 hours. And after just 12 hours, underarm sweat was reduced by 92%. I'm telling you, this stuff works. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. One of my favorite items outside of the sweat control are the deodorant wipes, because they're so easy to bring with you on the go, whether it is in your car, whether it's traveling on plane to go visit people. If you ever feel like you need a quick freshen up, deodorant wipes do the trick, and I use them a ton when I'm out golfing, playing basketball, and then having to go grocery shopping after the fact. So as a special offer for listeners, new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code CHAT. Use code CHAT at shopmando.com for 20% off site-wide plus free shipping. SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Mando's got you covered with deodorant plus sweat control. Say goodbye to sweat stains and hello to long-lasting freshness. The next trade candidate on Adam Schefter's report was no other than the other edge rusher veteran Miami has, Bradley Chubb. This makes a lot of sense, and this could be a hot commodity as well. I labeled Phillips as maybe the most hot commodity on this roster. Well, apparently there has been teams already interested in Bradley Chubb. Schefter named him as a player amongst like Alvin Kamara and some other names that a lot of NFL personnel are speculating could be dealt before that deadline in early November. Ian Rappaport said him, Arden Key, are 2 of the top edge rushers to garner interest in the league right now via trade. So it does feel like Bradley Chubb very well could be traded before that November 4th deadline. Now, I'll say this. The financial situation with Bradley Chubb is very, very complicated. I was doing research on the matter. Spotrac originally labeled Chubb's dead cap for Miami if they trade him to be $30.2 million in 2026. That doesn't seem to be that accurate, though. He would be relatively cheap to acquire financially this season for a team, but then it would cost them a little bit more money next year. So when you think Chubb and Jaelan Phillips, the 2 edge rushers that could be traded, a team might have to send higher draft capital for Jaelan Phillips because he's younger but it's also because it's much cheaper financially as well. More coming up here on Chubb, but who is the more likely edge rusher to be traded? Is it Jaelan Phillips, type JP? If it's Bradley Chubb, type BC. Now, Bradley Chubb has been technically more productive this season for Miami, leading the team in sacks with 4, has 4 TFLs, has a fumble forced, a fumble recovery. But when you watch him on the field, he has not popped as much. You see it on film, you see it in the middle of games as well. And his numbers tell that story as well from an advanced number perspective. His stop rate in the run defense, not very high. His pass rush win rate, 11.1%. Remember, we showed Jaelan Phillips earlier. His was at 19%. Yet Chubb has 3 more sacks than JP. So Chubb's raw numbers are better, but he has not had a better season than Jaelan Phillips, which is why I've said Phillips will be the more sought-after edge rusher from Miami, if you're asking me. When I'm thinking about interested teams, we don't have to really think too deeply here. It's going to be probably the same 5 teams that could be interested in Jaelan Phillips. San Francisco 49ers, as we mentioned earlier, and the other list of 4 as well. You would think a team that has a lot of financial flexibility would be going after Bradley Chubb just based off his contract and it being a little bit more heavy to take in long term. So that will be a factor with Bradley Chubb conversations as well. But I mentioned the financial aspect of it for Miami being a little bit complicated earlier in this video. Well, I finally was able to dissect the contract information and give a confident answer when it comes to how it would impact Miami right now. A Dolphins trade before the deadline involving Bradley Chubb would force a $23.8 million dead cap hit for the next season in Miami. Now, as we are currently speaking, Bradley Chubb's cap hit in 2026 is $31 million. So technically, you save $7.34 million in cap if you trade him now compared to having him next year, but you also wouldn't have him on the roster next season, and you're still paying him that $23.8 million. But I think if Bradley Chubb does not get traded, he will not be on the Dolphins roster next year anyway. Why do I say that? Well, the Dolphins could cut Bradley Chubb or trade Bradley Chubb, it does not matter, post June 1st. If they did that, they save $20.2 million, and they only have a dead cap hit of about $10.8 million. So a player in Chubb who has not been that good this season, you expect a ton of roster overhaul with a potential new GM and new coach next season as well. I do not think Bradley Chubb will be on this roster next season. So you could trade him now and get a 2026 draft pick out of it and take in $23.8 million in dead cap and save 7.3, or you can hold on to him, trade him or cut him after June 1st of 2026 and save $20 million and only incur a $10 million cap hit. Decision's tough, but I do imagine Bradley Chubb not being on this roster regardless in 2026. Final trade candidate via Adam Schefter, EDGE Jaelan Wright. And this should come as no surprise either. I have speculated that he will be traded. I think he will be traded because when you think about what Miami has at running back, Jaylen Wright is just simply not needed. Devon Achane is a top 5 running back in football. Ollie Gordon has been very solid as an RB2 and a change of pace back with Achane at times due to his 6'2", 225 frame. And the 4th-round pick from 2024 did not look good in the preseason, was banged up early, and has now been a healthy inactive the last 2 weeks in Miami. So if he is going to be a healthy inactive, why continue to keep him on the roster when you might be able to trade him for draft capital on day 3, and you imagine Ollie Gordon is the long-term future RB2 to Achane over Wright anyway? The 3 teams that I believe could be interested in Jaylen Wright are the Kansas City Chiefs, Los Angeles Chargers, and Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals dealing with James Conner out for the year, Benson out for an extended period of time, Amari DiMercado, Bam Knight, and Michael Carter simply aren't getting the job done, so I think they could be interested. And it's already clear that the Chiefs and Chargers are both interested in a running back. Ian Rappaport reported before Week 6 on Saturday night that the Chargers have been making calls around the league for a running back. Do you think Chris Grier and the Chargers GM may have talked this weekend when they were both in town for a Week 6 matchup? Yeah, they probably did a little bit. And the Chiefs have been looking for a explosive running back where maybe they look for Jaylen Wright because Pacheco and Kareem Hunt have been unable to make people miss. Their rookie day 3 pick, Rashad Smith, has not done that much. So they could be a team who call the Dolphins about Jaylen Wright, and they have been calling teams about running backs so far. So I think Wright will have some interest across the league, believe it or not. And when you think about the financial implications, there really isn't much there. He was a 4th-round pick last season, so his dead cap hits for Miami all under $1 million if they trade him. So there's no financial issue holding back a potential trade like it could with Bradley Chubb. So what would his value be? Well, I could see Jaylen Wright fetching a 6th-round pick straight up. I mean, we saw Tank Bigsby go for a 4th or 5th-round pick plus. Was it 5th and 7th, I believe? 5th and 6th when he went from Jacksonville to Philly earlier this season. And Bigsby, yeah, he was more productive than Wright last season, but same draft class. It was a 5th and 6th-round pick. Appreciate you, Producer Coop. I could see that being a case for Miami, but I also could see it be a pick swap where the Dolphins trade a 7th-round pick and Jaylen Wright to get a 5th-round pick. I honestly would be willing to do that. If you told me I could either trade Wright and a 7th for a 5th or Jaylen Wright just for a 6th, I would rather do the swap where I get a higher draft pick in the 5th round and on day 3. All right, I'll do it for today's show. As we said off the open, if the Dolphins do make a trade, and I expect that they do, Coop asked me actually earlier, what is the percentages that the Dolphins make at least one trade before the deadline? I confidently took 0 seconds to say 100%. A trade will just absolutely happen. So make sure you're in the know, subscribe, and turn on notifications.